Hello, and welcome back to the Battle Bard channel. Today, we're going to be diving into one of the most controversial and mystical topics in all of music, the difference between 432 Hz and 440 Hz tuning. So some say that one is the frequency of the universe, and others say that it's all just related to a conspiracy theory. But what's the real story here, and how does it affect you as a listener or a musician? So let's start back with the basics. In Western music, we often tune our instruments so that the note A above middle C vibrates at 440 cycles per second, or 440 Hz. This has been the global standard since the mid 20th century. But before this was officially adopted, tuning standards could vary wildly. In the later half of the 1800s, orchestras tuned anywhere from 420 Hz to 450 Hz. So tuning to 440 Hz is actually a relatively recent decision. So, where does the idea of tuning to 432 Hz come into play? Well, some musicians and theorists believe that tuning music to A432 produces a more harmonious and natural sound more in line with nature. Some even call it the frequency of the universe. From a purely scientific standpoint, the difference between 432 Hz and 440 Hz is just 8 vibrations per second, or 8 Hz, and that's a very small change, about 32 cents flatter than 440, or about one third of a semitone. So I'm going to go ahead and play my piano. I have two videos lined up. The first one is at 440 Hz, and the second one is at 432 Hz. Now, let's see if you can actually tell a difference between the two. So, did you actually hear a difference? Some people say that 432 Hz sounds a lot warmer, more mellow, and more relaxing. Others hear little to no difference at all. It's important to remember that our perception of pitch can be altered drastically by many different factors. Timbre, context, and even our own emotional state all contribute to how we perceive music. If you've ever listened to high pitched music while you have a headache, you know that it can be jarring and unwelcome. Now we're going to head back over to the piano, and using Logic, I've tuned one of these clips down to 432, and the other one is at concert pitch of 440. I haven't labeled them though, so see if you can tell which one is 440 and which one is 432. So which version of Lean On Me do you think was 440 and which was 432? Just so you know, the first one was 432 and the second one was 440. So looking into the history of why people advocate for 432 Hz tuning is when things get a little bit cosmic. Advocates for 432 often claim that it aligns more with natural patterns, planetary motion, or even ancient architecture like the Great Pyramids of Giza. While these ideas are very fascinating, there's not really any actual hard scientific data to back up these claims. The Schumann resonance of the Earth is a real thing, but it's actually measured at about 783 Hz, which is in no way directly related to 432 Hz. Scientifically speaking, 432 Hz and 440 Hz are just tuning systems. Neither is inherently more natural than the other. Our perception of beauty in music is largely subjective and shaped by the culture around us. I, for example, love heavy metal. If you're riding in my car, that's what we're listening to. You might not like it, and that's okay. It might not be your favorite genre, or you might hate it all the way, but if you're riding in my car, it's my rules. Sorry. Now, there are actually a few smaller studies that suggest that music tuned to 432 Hz may actually reduce anxiety and promote calmness. But these studies need a lot more review, and they need to be reproduced on a wider scale before we can actually count them as solid scientific evidence. So I'll throw a couple of these studies on the screen real fast. Here's one that showed that music tuned to 432 Hz actually had a better effect on lowering anxiety and salivatory cortisol levels in dental patients before tooth extraction, better than music that was tuned to 440 Hz. And here's another study that was done on people who've had spinal injuries, and they showed that listening to music at both 432 Hz and 440 Hz decreased anxiety but not significantly. But listening to music that was tuned to 432 Hz actually had a significant improvement in their sleep scores while they were asleep, as opposed to those who slept listening to music with 440 Hz. Still curious which one works best? Try tuning your own instrument down to 432 and see which works best for you. You might love it. Famous artists like the Beatles, Queen, and Bob Marley have all experimented with 432 Hz tuning. If you're using a digital instrument like I did earlier, then adjusting the tuning can be as easy as changing a couple settings in your digital audio environment. If you're using an acoustic instrument like a guitar, it may take a little bit more effort, but if you like the sound, then it's totally worth it. However, I can't imagine changing the tuning on an actual acoustic piano. I have to advise against that. There's 288 strings on that, if I remember correctly, and tuning a piano is such a pain. I can't imagine going through all that just to tune it down to 432. If you have some extra money and want to pay someone to do that, absolutely do that, but don't go and mess up your beautiful acoustic piano just to try and change the tuning a little bit on it. So 440 or 432, which one is better than the other one? Ultimately, that's up to you. Play in whatever tuning inspires joy, passion, and creativity in your music. If it feels right, that's the one for you. Now, there isn't a ton of research for 432 being the magical healing frequency of the universe, but 528 Hz actually shows a much more noticeable reaction in the body. So stay tuned for when I drop my 528 versus 440 Hz video coming soon. So if you tried making music at 432 Hz, let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you aren't already, and share it with your fellow musicians. Until next time, be sure to keep up that fight against awful music.